Hi, it's Jack, and this is the podcast version of this episode. If you want to read the words as they're being analysed, then if you're on Spotify, you can become a subscriber of this channel or head over to the YouTube channel. And on both platforms, you can also sign up to get exclusive episodes and early access to the regular weekly episodes too. The newly released transcript of Kathy Allen's police interview stays friendly, but once investigators start narrowing in on the day of the Delphi murders, her answers take the conversation in some unexpected directions. Let's look at that in this episode of Never a Truer Word, where we look at the words that people choose to use to see if they're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. If you're new to this channel, what I do here is different from anywhere else because I strip away everything apart from looking at the words that are used by the person at the centre of the story. Then I use my process of statement investigation to give us the key to seeing where the truth could be, where deception could be happening, and the motivations of the person talking as well. It's a process that I use with investigators, with corporate clients, and with the media to get a deep understanding of what is being said. And these, I think, are some of the most interesting words that I've analysed all year. It's Kathy Allen, Richard Allen's wife. I think they've arrested Richard at this point for the Delphi murders, and they decide to speak to her to see what she knows. Now, this has just been released in a document tranche. It was released earlier on this month, and they really are some of the most fascinating question and answer sessions that I have looked at. We're going to break down the words and see if we can come out of it wiser about what was going on. For example, does she know what her husband did? Does she suspect her husband? Or is she blind to absolutely everything? And is she right to be blind to everything? Did nothing happen as far as she could see it? Some things to look at as we go through this that I think are really important to note. Number one, Kathy's not a suspect. So we're not looking at her words to see what she did or didn't do. We're looking at them to see what she knows and what her attitude towards things are. Also, her husband's just been arrested for the most serious murder in the community ever. So she's bound to be nervous when she's doing this. So we may see her act in ways that are not what we would expect. And the other thing to notice is, what is the truth? Because actually, when we look at people's words for lies and truth, we need to remember something, which is that the truth is the truth as that person knows and believes it to them. For example, if I tell you I drive a green car and you believe I drive a green car, you tell everyone I drive a green car, your words will have all the hallmarks of the truth in it because you believe the truth is I drive a green car. So with all that in mind, let's look at the police interview. It's just a transcript. There's no videos to go with it, which I don't like because I'd like to see how someone says something as well as the words they use. But we'll go through this and just see what it is we can get from some of the most interesting exchanges I've seen in this police interview with Kathy Allen. The first part begins with a question from the police. You remember that day at all? And they're referring to the day of the girls, reported missing, first of all. What were you doing? What was going on that day? She says, I think I was working that day. I mean, what day of the week was it? She's told it's a Monday. She says, yeah, I would have been working. Now, there's not a lot of commitment in that. I think I was working that day. But listen, this was in 2022, I think 5 years on from the murder. So this is going to be a little bit lack of commitment. What were you doing 5 years ago today? You couldn't tell me with any conviction. She's trying to help here work out what she was doing that day by asking what day of the week was it? Monday. Yeah, I would have been working. And then the detective says, and then Valentine's Day would have been on the Tuesday. She says, okay, I don't know if you do anything special on Valentine's Day or not. And Kathy says, no. Really emphatic. I believe that is very straightforward. It's very, very precise. No, I don't do anything special on Valentine's Day. And we will see that this is a very general tell of the truth. When someone just takes on a question, answers it very simply, very precisely. No. That will become useful as we look at some of her other answers. It's put to her by the police. Sometimes people do something special. And she says, on my schedules, and the police says things so, and this transcript is broken down like that. It's very much as we heard it. So I think what you get to see there is that she's talking about her schedules, and he's saying sometimes people do special things on Valentine's Day. So she says, yeah, I have to look back, but I'm pretty sure I was probably working. Again, pretty sure and probably working. Low commitment to it, but we're not sitting there going, oh my God, she's not committed to this. That's what will happen when you ask people questions about 5 years ago. Okay, says the police guy. And then she says, on Tuesday as well. I had Tuesdays off at one point, and then I had Wednesdays off back and forth, so it could be I I'm sure I was probably working that Tuesday. Now, she wasn't asked about that Tuesday. She's moved into talking about that Tuesday. It's a bit extra. It's not being asked for. It's filler. Now, why does she feel the need to fill things here? Why doesn't she just say, I think I was working on the Monday, which is the answer to the question that she was asked? Well, it could be distraction. She's trying to talk about the Tuesday or her general schedule of days off, rather than talk about this thing that maybe causes her stress or causes her discomfort, which is talking about the day the girls were murdered. Could be nerves. She could just feel the need to say things to be really helpful and come across as really helpful. Or is the Tuesday significant to her and that's why she feels the need to say, I was probably working on the Tuesday as well? Those are just questions right now. No suspicions here right now. Okay, says the police guy. If not, I would have been off. She says, so if I wasn't working, I would have been off. Yeah, that'd be on Monday, but yeah. She says, yeah, on the Monday, yeah. And the police guy says, yeah. She says, I would have been working that day. Straightforward. Nothing persuasive in there. Actually, there's nothing there that qualifies it as well. So she's come to the decision that Monday, she was working. She's being helpful. Seems to be being truthful there. She was working that day. Okay, says the police guy. She says. Then there's a section in this where they ask some questions about Richard and Kathy's daughter. I'm not going to go into all those details there, but in that section, they establish that the daughter is no longer living at home and wasn't living at home on the day in question either. So when the police guy establishes that, he says, so it's just been you and your husband at home, okay? And our cats. With a chuckle, says Kathy. The police guy chuckles as well and says, a lot of cats. Is he trying to build rapport here? There's some chuckling mentioned in the transcripts that doesn't seem right given the gravitas of the situation. Not only the murder of two young girls, but also the fact her husband is at this moment suspected of that murder. Could be nervous chuckling, I guess. A lot of cats, says the police guy. We had 3, says Kathy. Now, the word 3 in the number 3 is going to come across a lot in this interview. 3 often is a deceptive number. When people make up stories, they put 3s in. There was 3 men. I tried it 3 times. Now, I don't think she's making up a lie about the number of cats we had. I'm just going to point out that the number 3 appears a lot. Keep an eye out for it. 3, repeats back the police guy. But we have 2 now, yeah, says Kathy. That's plenty. Sometimes 1's plenty. Yeah, says Kathy. Now, this cats thing is, again, I think it's a little bit of a distraction. It's extra again. She wasn't really asked about the cats. She's brought it in and she's gone down the road of saying how many cats they had, how many cats they have now. Again, is this nerves or is she slightly worried about answering questions about the day in question, that Monday in February? The police guy brings it back onto point. So the 2 of you just lived at home at that point in time? Yes, says Kathy. Again, an indicator of the truth. It's a question. It's a yes or no question. The 2 of you just lived at home at that point in time? Yes, we did. No, we didn't. She just says yes. So again, this is what she sounds like when she's being truthful, which is what most people sound like when they're being truthful. Straightforward to the point. Was he working then? Yes, says Kathy. Okay, where did he work then? And her answer is CVS. He did work at Walmart too. I think he's been at CVS about 5 or 6 years, so it might have been right on the cusp of him starting there. But she's very definite. Where did he work at the time? CVS is her answer. And then she goes extra once more with talking about Walmart and how long he's been at CVS. But she's definite that he was working at CVS at the time. But again, she's gone a little bit extra. I think she's a little bit nervous about talking about the day in hand. No judgment attached to that right now, just a note. She's nervous about talking about that day. The police guy says, and you said Walgreens? Walmart. Corrects Kathy. Walmart, yeah. Okay. It was in Lafayette. The police guy says, the one in 26? Yeah. Okay. And would you know whether he worked that day or not? So this is talking about Richard. Would you know whether he worked that day or not? It's a yes-no question. And she says, oh God, I can't remember what yesterday. We can infer from that. She might have said, I can't remember what I had for breakfast yesterday. That typical sort of thing of, I can't remember whether he worked that day 5 years ago. Now, again, I'm going with that because it doesn't seem to be out of the ordinary that we couldn't know what our partner was doing on a specific day 5 years ago. It's a yes-no question, but she does slightly avoid it. Okay, says the police guy. And then she says, I seriously am having a lot of brain fog with COVID. So, okay, you've had COVID then? Oh, yes. I just want you to remember that. She's having a lot of brain fog with COVID. So you've had COVID then? Oh, yes. Okay. She says, like 3 times. There's that number 3 again. Oh, it's not fun. No, says Kathy. Police guy brings it back again because she's gone off again, talking about COVID now, away from that day. That's about the third time she's taken us away from that day to talk about something else. The information that we have, and this actually came from him, was that he was on the trail that day. Okay, says Kathy. Does he normally go on the trails is the question. And she says, oh, we used to go quite a bit. Now, this is an answer I'm really interested in because the question is, does he normally go on the trails? A question about Richard. And her answer is about we, her and Richard. Oh, we used to go quite a bit. So she doesn't directly answer the question. Does he normally go on the trails? Yes, he does. No, he doesn't. Or very infrequently or anything like that. But she talks about the pair of them. Very interesting pronoun shift where she's asked the question about him and answers about the pair of them. And also, we used to go quite a bit. Says that they don't go now. Says that at some point they went to the trails quite a bit, but now they don't because that phrase used to go signifies that. Keep that one in mind because it's going to become relevant as we go through a little bit more of that. Strange pronoun shift from he to we, and we used to go quite a bit, but we don't anymore. Okay, says the police guy. Oh yeah, we walked the trails a lot. Got the exact same thing going on here. It's we walked the trails a lot. So we, again, she was asked about Richard, but she's talking about the pair of them. And then we've got walked in past tense. It's not we walk the trails a lot. We still do. It's we walked the trails a lot. So at some point, they've stopped walking the trails a lot there. The detective might notice this pronoun shift because he asked about he. He's had answers about we, about the pair of them. And he says, would he go by himself or... And she says, occasionally, if he had the day off. So there, her answer is, sometimes he would go by himself, but if he had the day off, and we know she's ascertained that he had the day off then, that Monday. So what she's saying is, very much likely that he had the day off. He could have been on the trail that day. But obviously, he wouldn't go by himself if they both had the day off or he didn't have the day off. She's been very qualified with the answer about would he go by himself. Occasionally, he would if he had the day off. Okay, says the detective. And then she says, yeah, I mean, I've done it on my day off before. Now, I haven't done it since they started doing construction and stuff. So now she's been asked about him. Does he do it alone? And she says, yeah, I mean, I've done it on my day off before. What is she doing here? Is she trying to socialise and say that it's not a weird thing to do to go walking the trails on your day off? Because what she's doing seems to me to be justifying the fact that Richard might have been on the trail that day on his day off by saying, Kathy, I do it on my day off before. I haven't done it since they started doing construction and stuff. And then she says, actually, we don't walk the trails we walk the other trails. And the morning one we've walked, but it's probably been a year or two. So here again, we've got this whole thing about the walking the trails being in the past. I haven't done it. So this is Kathy herself, not talking on Richard's behalf here. I haven't done it since they started doing construction and stuff. So there's something being hidden there in the and stuff. It might be suspicious. It might not be suspicious, but she's not saying what it is. She's swallowing it all up with and stuff. And then she says, actually, we don't walk the trails for Now, we don't walk the trails. Another sign that they don't walk those trails anymore. Which is interesting to me that something, she says it's construction, has stopped them from walking the trails. It's we don't walk the trails, by the way. Again, she's come back to the pair of them, not just herself, not just Richard. We walked the other trails and then the morning one. We've walked, but it's probably been a year or two. So this trail walking is in the past, and now she's putting some time on it. It's been a year or two, but only probably been a year or two. Okay, yeah, we don't walk that one too much. We don't walk that one. Is that the morning one? We, again, it's the pair of them, don't walk that one too much. Well, that's saying that you do walk that one. She's a bit not very solid here on whether they walk the trails or which trails they walk and whether they walk them or not. We don't walk that one too much. The police guy brings it back on to the questions that he wants answered. So that wouldn't be unusual for him to go out to do those trails. And she says, no, because I do it too. That's very interesting. She's not just sticking to the facts. It wouldn't be unusual for him to walk and do the trails. No, it wouldn't. Or, yeah, it was unusual, but he did it from time to time, or whatever the answer would be. She says, no, because I do it too. Almost as if for him to do something that is usual, it has to be the fact that she must do it as well. It's a very strange answer. She's asked a lot about him, and she doesn't answer about him in solo a lot. She brings herself into it time after time after time. Yeah, says the police guy. Yeah, until that happened. I mean, I don't carry or anything, but I'm a little bit more cautious if I go by myself. So now we've got another reason for not walking the trails. That happened, which I'm guessing is the murders of those girls. But it could be anything at all because she doesn't define it. She did say construction and stuff earlier, and she said it was a couple of years, but it's that happened. She doesn't define it, but yeah. Is she saying that they haven't walked the trails since the murders of those girls? Yeah, until that happened. I mean, I don't carry or anything, but I'm a little more cautious if I go by myself. Right. But says Kathy, and then the police guy says, which part of the trails did you guys go to most of the time? Kathy's answer is, well, we'd walk the main trail, and then there was the one that would come off that trail. Now she starts her answer with well, which is not a direct answer. Which part of the trails did you guys go to most of the time? Well is an indication that you're getting an explanation or a bit of a story rather than a direct, straightforward answer. Well, we'd walk the main trail, and then there was the one that would come off that trail. The police guy says, okay, so inaudible, and she says, and there used to be like, and the police guy says, the main one out there, or the Monmouth Bridge one, says Kathy. Okay, says the police guy, we'd walk that one, and then we would walk, the turnaround. You have to turn around. So again, she's talking about the pair of them. We'd walk that one, and then we would walk, the turnaround. You have to turn around. Right, because the tracks are getting really bad, says Kathy. At some point, I just quit going that way. And then there was a place that you could go down to the river like canoers would go. So she's talking about herself quitting here. So she's been asked lots of questions about Richard, and it seems almost as if she's saying that he only does things that I do, or is she unsure of her answer, or is she not committing to saying anything about Richard and just wanting to say things about herself using we and also using I. At some point, I just quit going that way. That word just is in there as well, an indicator deception could be happening. And then there was a place you could go down to the river like canoers would do. Okay, says the police guy, and we'd go down there quite a bit, talking on behalf of both of them again, because it's prettier down there. So, we'd walk clear of the bridge a lot of times, says the detective. We'd walk to the bridge, yeah, so we've got that we again, and then usually turn around because it's too hard to walk over it. But we usually turn around, doesn't mean they always turned around. Would you guys walk over it years ago, though, says Kathy, saying we have walked over the bridge. Okay, and then she says, I mean, way before. Well, they still have the thing up there. I don't know if they have shut it off completely or not now, but I haven't been down there for years. So once again, we have this whole sign that the pair of them have been, and Kathy especially, avoiding this area for a long time. Way before this has all been done. So there's the first part of this interview that I wanted to bring us along to. Look, so far I see distracting extras that she doesn't want to talk about that day. She seems to want to delay getting there. That could be nerves, it could be stress, it could be she knows that questions about that day are going to cause her discomfort, but she wants to distract from talking about that day. It's really strange pronoun use, all being around walking the trails, where she's asked about Richard all the time and she answers for herself and she answers for the pair of them, and she's really with that pronoun use shows that she is uneasy talking about Richard and what he did alone. Now, still to come, the detectives show her bridge guy's picture and ask her, do you think this is your husband? Her answers in that. We'll be breaking those down as they come. Let's go and see some more from this interview then. The question, did he ever talk to you about being out there that day, which is the day of the murders? No, she says. Again, like I say, it's a really straightforward answer. No is what she says. The day the girls went missing. No, she says. So just remember that. Did he ever talk to you about being out there that day? No, she says. The day the girls went missing. No, she says again. He never said a word about something inaudible there. And she says, well, actually, no. He said he went for a walk. So, well is there again, which is that indicator of, just listen to this answer really closely because it's probably very interesting in how it's structured, or are you getting storytelling or explanations? Well, actually, no, he said he went for a walk. So she was asked, did he say anything about that day? She said no. The day the girls went missing, she said no. She was not telling the truth there. Her last two answers, those no's, were not true because he said he went for a walk. And also, earlier, remember she said she didn't know if he'd worked that day or not, but then she said he only went walking when it was a day off. He only went on his own when it was a day off. Well, she's now decided that he did have a day off there because he said he went for a walk. So these things are not quite hanging together for me right now. Okay, says the police guy. He did say he went for a walk out there and that he ran into these three girls that were weird. The number three again. Always a sign, not that you're being lied to, but you should dig in. If someone mentions three in a story, dig in a little bit. Are you getting the full truth here? Okay, says the police guy. And so he was like, I'm just going to go home because one of them had long black hair. Or at least that's what he told me. I don't know. Now, this is a little bit extra here. She is starting it with and so. That means you're getting some storytelling because when people talk about events, it's just this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. When you're getting reasons behind the events as well as the events, you get and this happened, so this happened, and this happened, so this happened, and so. Watch out for it. It means you're getting being told a story, a reason for things happening as well as the things that happened. And we have that here. And so he was like, I'm just going to go home. Look, we've had the number three. Now we've got a word just, indicators that deception could be happening. I'm just going to go home because one of them has long black hair. I really don't get that. I'm going home because a girl has long black hair. Very strange. Or at least that's what he told me. I don't know. Or at least that's what he told me. Now, that is a phrase you only use if you're not certain of the truth. Remember I said about hearing the truth, and if you believe it, then you will repeat it like the truth. Well, what she's saying here is, I don't know if I heard the truth or not. I don't know if Rick told me the truth about that day, because what I'm doing now is repeating to you what he told me, but I can't back that up with anything. So she is open to the fact that Rick Allen might not have told her the truth about that day, or at least that's what he told me. Then she says, I don't know. Now, if three and just and things like that are indicators deception could be happening, then I don't know is very often an indicator you're being told the truth. Truthful people don't mind saying, I don't know. Liars feel like they have to know everything, so they won't use that phrase, I don't know. They will say other things. They will make things up. They will hide the fact they don't know things, but truthful people do not mind saying, I don't know. And she says, I don't know here. I don't know what happened. I only know what he told me. What did he say was weird about something inaudible in the transcript, but I'm guessing it's weird about the girls. And she says, I don't know. That's all he told me. So again, we've got that I don't know. And again, we've got that that's all he told me, i.e. there could be a lot more about it. But you'll notice she's very definite that all he said was there was three girls and one of them had long black hair. Remember the brain fog from earlier? The brain fog from the COVID that she was having? That seems to have disappeared. She's very definite now that he did say he was on the trail that day and they saw three girls. She's very definite about that. One of them had long black hair. He just came home. But she's very definite that that is all she was told there. The brain fog has lessened for some reason. Police, being top investigators, do you know what he was wearing that day? She says, oh my God, anything unusual when he got home? Or did you get home later in the day? Or she said, I got home later in the day. Again, the recall seems to be kind of good about this day now. Okay, what time would you have gotten home? She says, probably 6, because at that time we were open until 5 o'clock. So 6 or 6:30, if I remember correctly. He was sleeping when I got home. He was on the couch. Again, the brain fog seems to have gone. And he was... And the detective seems to interrupt and he says, go ahead. So Kathy says, and he was. She's given the go ahead, but she doesn't go ahead. So that night, I remember on the news, it came up. So she doesn't go ahead. He was, we don't know. She doesn't tell us what he was. But she goes, so that night, I remember on the news, it came up. The detective says, that the girls were missing. And I wanted to go and look for them. The police guy says, okay, what was his opinion at that point? And she starts another answer with, well, Of course, I can't go out and look for them because there's too many people out there. But he said, just let them do their job. So we've got a well again. We've got a little bit of storytelling. Of course, I can't go out and look for them. Is it of course? Of course is used by people trying to convince us. Of course this is true. Of course I can't go out and look for them. So why is she convincing us at this point that of course I can't go out and look at them? Of course, don't question this. It's of course. And then it's I can't go out and look for them. Again, it's all about her. I can't go out and look for them because there's too many people out there. But he said, just let them do their job. So there's too many people out there seems to be a strange way of dealing with two missing girls. Like, if that is the reason that was there, did she buy that? Or is she not relaying the truth here? There's too many people out there. When people are missing, you need all the hands that you can get. The police guy says, okay, so he wasn't. And Kathy carries on. He goes, we don't need to be out there with all these people. He goes, we, so she was asked, she said she wanted to go looking, but now it's we don't need to go out there with all these people. Now that one's interesting for me because later on she's going to talk about how he has some social phobias and so on, doesn't like being in crowds, doesn't like being with people. So maybe that is what actually went on. Maybe he was like, I don't want to be a terrible person, but I don't want to go out and do all the searching because I'll be with people and I cannot be with people. But we don't need to be there with all those people. There's too much going on. Again, a sign of overwhelm going on there, potentially. You know, if you're out there and then, anything could happen. If they find stuff, laying around, they could blame you and all that shit. So in her words, on the day those girls were missing and she wanted to go out and search, her husband, Rick Allen, said to her, don't go out there because if they find stuff, not if they find the girls, but if they find stuff laying around, I mean, that's what happened. And this part really does get to me here. He apparently said, in the words of his wife, don't go searching for the girls because if they find stuff laying around, not if they find the girls, if they find stuff laying around, they could blame you. Why? I really don't get why that would be said, why that is the thought that's there. I really can understand if he said, I'm not a social person, there'll be groups here, there'll be crowds of people, it'll be too much for me, too much going on, I will not be able to cope with that, I would be no use to the search party at all. I could get that. I would find it a bit strange. I would say, dump your insecurities and get out there and try and find two missing girls. But I would understand it. But then for her to say that he said, if they find stuff laying around, they could blame you. Well, they found stuff laying around and Richard finally got the blame. Really, really, really strange answer. Okay, laundry. Do you do the laundry? Does he do the laundry? We both do the laundry. Okay, says the police guy. Had he done the laundry that day? I don't know, says Kathy. Again, it's an I don't know. And look, do you know if your partner did the laundry on a specific day 5 years ago? Of course you don't. So there's an indication again that she's being truthful. I know, we're talking a long time ago, says the detective. I don't remember. I'm sorry, she says. I mean, 5 years ago, I can't tell you a hell of a lot either, says the police guy. Yeah, says Kathy. But, okay, so he admitted being at the Freedom Bridge that day. Okay, says Kathy. He admitted seeing three females. Says Kathy. Said one was taller and had brown or long black hair. Okay, says Kathy. Then he said he walked from Freedom Bridge to the High Bridge. Okay, says Kathy. Is that normal? And she says, oh yeah, we both did that. So once more, is it normal for him to walk from the Freedom Bridge to the High Bridge? Yeah, it's normal. She says, yeah, we both did that. So again, it's only normal if she does it as well. Okay, sure, says Kathy. Said he didn't see anybody else. Says Kathy. So another part of the interview there. And what do I get from it? Well, listen, in that part there, I mean, there are inconsistencies in what she says. Some of the things really don't add up. There's still the strange pronoun moves, between I and we doing that. But that part about not searching, things laying around and you getting the blame for it, that has me interested a lot. This is obviously, it's a very unusual relationship that Kathy and Richard have, and we're going to learn more about that as we go through this police interview with Kathy Allen. The next part I want to look at is talking about mobile phones. You mentioned he had a Razor. Do you, back then, did he have a smartphone at all? Or, she says, we've always had a phone. I mean, we went from big ones to like flips, and the police guy says, I know he had a Razor. He had at least 2 of those. By the way, for younger viewers, Razors were phones back in the day. Razors were a flip back still, right? Oh, is it still a flip? Says Kathy. That was a flip. Okay. The Razor. So he had 2 of those, says Kathy, but he ran over one of them with the lawnmower. And then there's a chuckle. She starts her answer with so. Another indication that you're going to get an interesting answer when someone says well or so. It might not be interesting in the way the person wants it to be interesting, but do listen. When someone, even in your life, when you ask them a question and they start their answer with so or well, you're going to get storytelling, or you're going to get an explanation rather than just a direct answer to your question. So he had 2 of those, but he ran over one of them with a lawnmower. And you'll notice here, she's not saying we ran over one of them with a lawnmower, but she's done a lot, or we both did it, or anything like that. She's leaving this fairly and squarely at Rick. But he ran over one of them with the lawnmower. That's a good way to do it, says the detective. Not really, says Kathy. Then, inaudible something from the police guy. Yeah, it was expensive, she says. So, look, I think really interesting that he ran over his phone with a lawnmower. Never heard of that before in my life. This guy is suspected of grotesque murders and could be seen as getting rid of a phone by destroying it with a lawnmower. Never heard of it before in my life. If I was the police guy, I would have asked a lot more questions at that point, especially because we had that so at the beginning, which indicates you're getting a bit of a story. Kathy says it was expensive. Now that's, to me, is leakage. It's leakage that was her thought, that the phone was destroyed and it was expensive, not, thank God we've got rid of some evidence here, it's just one of those things, thank God he got rid of some evidence. No, she says it was expensive. She seems to regret it or acknowledge that this was an expensive mistake. So he had a Razor. I don't know, he might have had a Motorola at some point, because I remember the M being on her phone, so that might have been another one. The police guy says, do you? I know you said you didn't look at his phone. She says, yeah, confirming that she didn't look at his phone. Do you? Did any? We talked about him trading. Yeah, says Kathy. Did he ever have any apps on his phone? Like, did you ever see him checking stocks or whatever it was? She says, he might have. I wouldn't even know how to look that up on his phone. Seriously, he might have. Now, we've got here a yes-no question. Did you ever see him checking stocks on his phone? Now, it's a yes-no question. Can be answered very truthfully with a yes, a no. Also, I don't know is a very honest answer to that as well, because if you don't know the answer to a yes-no question, I don't know is a very straightforward answer. And she says he might have. In other words, I don't know. She's open to the possibility that he could have, but she's saying he might have. Did he ever mention to you, like, when you guys were sitting on the couch watching TV, did he ever yeah, I'm just checking my stocks on this phone as well as on the computer? She says, no, because we just kind of do our own thing on our phones. So she goes with a no, which is no, straightforward, directly addressing the question there. And she does this a lot. She directly answers the question that she's asked, because we just kind of do our own thing on the phones. Now, just kind of do our own thing on the phones, so maybe there is some conversation about it. We will find that out, actually, that they don't just do their own thing on the phones and not pay any attention to anyone else. But also, it's just kind of do our own thing on the phones. Sounds like a relationship that maybe people are not too interested in each other and what they're doing inside this. But that just kind of do our own thing on the phones. Yeah, I do my own thing on the phones. She does her own thing on the phones. However, she doesn't say we don't talk about them. It's just we do our own thing on the phones. She says, yeah, we don't really pay attention to each other. So we've got just kind of do our own thing on the phones, and we don't really pay attention to each other. Don't really is not, we don't pay attention to each other. It's concrete. We just do not. It's just we don't really, which means they do in some ways, as you'll see. Okay, that's fine. Fair enough. And what are you looking at? Ask what you're looking at, says Kathy. Don't quite know what that means, but there's a chuckle. The police guy says, you do social media? And she says, no. Or at least he tells me he's never been on social media. Now, this interested me. She was asked, you do social media? And she answers about him, not about herself. You do social media? No. Or at least he tells me he's never been on social media. So she answers about him. Now, she says that no, so if she misheard the question and thought it was about Richard, she just says no. Or at least he tells me he's never been on social media. A second time she's indicated that she might not be hearing everything from her husband, Richard Allen. Or at least he tells me he's never been on social media. I don't think she thinks he tells the full story all the time about anything. Okay, says the police guy, and he can't stand that I'm on it. Now, he can't stand. Now, that again gives me the impression this is a relationship with a bit of tension. It's not, he doesn't like the fact I'm on it or he thinks I shouldn't be on it. It's he can't stand the fact that I'm on it. That's heightened severity there. And also, don't pay attention to what each other are doing on the phones, but he can't stand that she's on social media on her phone. So he does pay some attention. I told you that, don't really pay attention and kind of do her own things. They were aware of what they did on each other's phones, or at the very least, from what she said there, he was aware of what she did on her phone. So you're on it, says the police guy. I'm on TikTok too much and Facebook. Yeah, pretty addicting, says the police. I am. TikTok is really bad. Yeah, I need to cool that down. 2 hours a day is too much. So there's that session there on the phones. I see her being mostly helpful and truthful in that session there because she does seem to take on the questions that she's asked and answer those directly. However, also there, it seems like a strained relationship, don't you think? It seems like a relationship where there are real tensions there. Now, if I was the police, I would be asking questions about the broken phone. They just seem to let that one pass. But for me, that there was some indications around there. That was a question. That was a subject I would have dug into harder. And also, a question for you. Do you think she's being serious enough? We see little chuckles going on here. Like I said, her husband is in the trouble of his life, as you know, we now know. And also it's involving clearing up who murdered 2 local young girls. And there's a lot of chuckling and so on going on there. What do you think? Do let me know. Now, do you ever feel that someone's holding something back or not giving you the full story? We saw there twice Kathy has indicated that her husband might not be giving her the full story. At least that's what he tells me. But if that's how you feel about someone, I'm here to tell you that you're not paranoid. You're actually being perceptive. You will be picking up on subtle cues, but most people miss the clues hiding in plain sight. You don't have to, because I'll show you how what you hear and what's really being said are related, and also what's not being said as well. Every case I break down will sharpen your instincts and change how you hear conversations forever. So if you're ready to see through the noise in someone's words, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, follow this channel and step inside this world. You can see a lot more breakdown on Delphi if this is the case that interests you, just by clicking on the playlist. You can see what I think of some of the things that Richard Allen has said and some of the people around the case as well, including this one on Kathy. And do you know someone who keeps getting misled? Someone who thinks their husband, for example, isn't telling them the full story? Do send this content their way, because you might just change the way that they see the world. Shall we go back inside this police interview with Kathy then? The next section I want to look at is the question is, when you were at work, would he go out to the trails and go working? She says, Would he ever go with anybody? Is there any other people you know? And there's something inaudible, but we've got the gist of the question, which is, when he'd go walking, would he ever go with anybody? She says, he'd go with family. Family, says the policeman. Yeah. Do you know who he'd go with? And she says, he would go with me and Brittany, that's their daughter, when she was still home. And sometimes if my brother David and John were up, but John's passed away since then. Now, the question was asked, when you were at work, so you're not around, you're at work, would he go walking in the trails and who would he go with? And her answer is me, but she's not around. So this is maybe nerves, just wanting to be helpful and just saying everything that happened. Or maybe she's not directly answering the question. He would go with me and Brittany when she was still home. And sometimes if my brother David and John were up. John's passed away since then. Since when? Was there something, and was it the murder of Abby and Libby that's been some sort of dividing line between when they would go on the trails and when they wouldn't go on the trails, or when Richard would go walking the trails and when he didn't go walking the trails? But since then, she doesn't say what since then means, but it's the second time in all of this I get a sense that he stopped walking the trails. Okay, says the police guy. And then my mother-in-law would go along if she was here. Now, you notice that the brothers were qualified. So he'd go with my brother David. Sometimes if my brother David and John were up, they'd go walking. And if my mother-in-law would go along if she was here. So there's very qualified. He would go with the brothers if they were up. If the mother-in-law, if she was here. Okay. Yeah. We kind of made it a family event most times, is what she said. So once more, she's been asked about Richard's walking habits, and she's answered about a larger group, herself involved. We kind of made it a family event most times. And you'll see that what she says there is not always, it's we kind of made it a family event most times. So she's focusing in on when they went walking with others that were the family, but she's not shutting the door entirely on the fact that Richard would go walking alone. She just doesn't want to talk about those times. You know, you guys would go for a walk, and David and John are David and John, and this is the police guy asking for the second name. She says, John's passed away. What's the last name? David Walker. Walker, okay, John Walker. John, inaudible, says Kathy. When did John pass away? 2016. Says Kathy. Then there's some chatting about addresses of where these people live, which we won't go. But then they ask about someone who, if you follow this case, the Kleins are important people inside the story of Abby and Libby. Okay, how about the name Jerry Klein? Does that ring any bells to you? Or Tony Klein? And she says, I just seen the name in the news recently. Just. We've got that word again. So what she really wants to do is just hone in on, I don't know these people at all. I only know them from what I've seen on the news. That's what she really wants to get across. She could have said, I seen the name on the news recently, but it's I just seen the name on the news recently. Okay, you don't know him. No, she says. Again, straightforward, really direct. You don't know him? No, I believe she does not know him. Not familiar with him at all? I don't believe this. Because she says, never heard of him. And the funny thing is, I think is he from Peru, is what she says. So we've got that word never heard of him. Now, never, again, like the number 3 appears in Deception a lot. And she has heard of him because she's heard of him in the news. So it's not, she's trying to really persuade us, convince us how distant she is from him. Why does she feel that need to persuade and convince here? Again, nerves, worry, stress, I don't know, but she's working really hard because she said already, I have heard of him. She's heard of him in the news, so you're not familiar with him at all. Only what I know from the news would be a more direct, truthful answer. Instead, she's giving us an untruthful answer. It's deceptive. Never heard of him. As well, she doesn't join herself to that. She doesn't say, I've never heard of him. She doesn't join herself up and give commitment there. It's never heard of him. And the funny thing is, I think, is he from Peru? Because I grew up in Peru, but he's probably a lot younger than I am. So she's never heard of him, but she knows lots about him. So in that section there, look, she does not want to talk about Richard walking the trails alone. That is my big takeaway from that there. And also, the Kleins, that all interests me as well. Has she heard more of them? I believe she doesn't know them, but does she know of them? That would be my question there. We're going to talk about what he was wearing that day as well, and what she's got to say about that. Interesting answers there. Let's get another little section from it. You were talking that day, you were talking about the day when you wanted to go out and help with the search party. Was that normal for him to say, like, no, let's not do it? Or is it, and there's something inaudible according to the transcript. She says, well, yeah, because it wasn't reasonable. I mean, it wasn't reasonable to have a bunch of people out there. Now, she avoids the question here. You were talking about the day when you wanted to go out to help with the search party. Was that normal of him to say, like, no, let's not do it? And she says, well, yeah, because it wasn't reasonable. I mean, it wasn't reasonable to have a bunch of people out there. She avoids the question. She doesn't answer about her husband at all. Richard's not in her answer. It wasn't reasonable. Not he thought it wasn't reasonable. It's just it wasn't reasonable. I mean, it wasn't reasonable to have a bunch of people out there at all. It was reasonable. Wasn't it reasonable? Then this could be a transcription error. It says do. Was this norm though? Or like if it were anything else, would he be like? I don't know what that question is. Maybe it's a so. Was that his norm though? Let's just take that. And she says, Kathy says, oh no, he wouldn't want to go. And once more, she doesn't provide a full direct answer. Yeah, this was his norm. He didn't want to do things like that. Okay, says the police guy. It wouldn't matter. He'd be like, no, you're just going to hinder things. Now, we've got a contradiction there because what she said is that it wasn't reasonable. It wasn't reasonable to have a bunch of people out there. And now it is, you're just going to hinder things. He'd be like, no, you're just going to hinder things. Two different things going on there. Again, when she talks or doesn't talk, she skirts around what it was why he objected to her going out and joining the search party that night. Right. So you need to stay out of it. I mean, I think everybody probably was thinking that day. No, they weren't. There were lots of people out there searching for two local young missing girls, thinking they were in severe danger, severe peril. Lots of people were out there doing it, but she wants to socialise his thinking. Again, she's explaining away his actions that are got question marks around them, like why did he act in a certain way? And she is like now socialising it, so not just saying, look, he didn't want anyone getting involved. She's trying to socialise it and say it wasn't just him doing that. Everybody was doing that. Everybody was thinking that day, is what she says in her words. However, she does weaken it a bit by saying, I think everybody probably was thinking that day. So it's weakened with the I think, and everybody probably was thinking that day. I just don't like this bit here. It doesn't hang together well for me. So in that part there, she is hiding or avoiding something here. Why is that? What was it he said, or how was it he acted that night that she doesn't want to share and wants to talk about anything else but, and put up excuses for what happened there? We are going to hear shortly how it was she dealt with being confronted with the bridge guy picture and asked, is this your husband? But here's another part here. Who are his close friends, the detective says. Close? He doesn't have any close friends, says Kathy. Any friends that people he does chat with or communicates with on a regular basis? And she doesn't quite answer that and say no. She just says, I'm telling you, he's a hermit. I'm telling you, he's a hermit. She doesn't answer the question directly. And this part is hugely interesting to me. She doesn't mind talking him down. I don't think calling someone a hermit is a compliment or something nice. It seems to be something that kind of bothers her. It's not like a harsh criticism, but it's not something you would call someone that you thought very, very fondly of. I don't believe. I'm telling you, he's a hermit. She doesn't mind talking him down. Now, does this explain why she is so weird on pronouns in the walking parties? Is it the fact that this guy acts in some really strange ways because he is a hermit, because he has social phobias and so on? And is that why she always has to socialise things and talk about the wees and the friends on the walks? I don't know. Then she says, he hates going out in public and he's afraid of big crowds. And we have people we play pool with when we're there, but we don't hang out with anybody, or he doesn't. And we've got pronoun city here, all very coherent. But you'll notice that she's not joining herself with him here in terms of the antisocialness. He hates going out in public and he's afraid of big crowds. And we have people we play pool with when we're there, but we don't hang out with anybody. Or he doesn't. So I kind of believe all that, but we can see here the pronouns. She's very good with her pronouns, which is why I'm interested in when she shifts them from talking about he when she's asked to talking about we, talking about the walks. She says, I'm the social one, so yeah, I would have more friends than he probably ever would. Again, really straightforward. She's not trying to persuade us or convince us. There's no extra words in there. There's no word salads to make her point come across here. It's really, really straightforward. I believe that. She's the social one. I have more friends than he ever would. She's asked, when he would go out to the trails or he would go fishing, what would he normally wear? She says, probably blue jeans. He doesn't wear sweatpants, and depending on the weather, a t-shirt, tennis shoes. Very direct. The brain fog does seem to have gone here, but probably blue jeans. He doesn't wear sweatpants, and depending on the weather, a t-shirt, tennis shoes. The police guy realises we're talking about February. On colder days, how would he dress? Would he hoodie or what? She says, no, he didn't wear hoodies out. He's got some thicker jackets, so I assume probably a Carhartt. Interesting answer. He didn't wear hoodies out. That's in the past. Is she just covering up for that day and saying that he didn't wear a hoodie that day? Or is she saying that things have changed? Once upon a time, he didn't wear hoodies out, but now he does. Don't know, but it's interesting. It's not he doesn't wear hoodies out. It's he didn't wear hoodies out. By the way, you'll notice that doesn't say that he doesn't have hoodies. In fact, it's saying he has hoodies. He wears them in or around the house or in the garden or something like that. I don't know. But he didn't wear hoodies out. He's got some thicker jackets. So I assume probably a Carhartt. Okay, yeah. Did he ever cover his mouth like then there's something inaudible from the police. Did he ever cover his mouth at all? No, she says no scarves. Nope. No, a scarf? Are you kidding me? Says Kathy. The police guy laughs. Kathy laughs back. He hardly wears a ball cap, is what she says. Now, I know what you're thinking about hats and so on. Is she trying to get ahead of a picture here? She doesn't say he doesn't wear a ball cap or he doesn't own ball caps or anything like that. He doesn't wear hats. He doesn't wear anything on his head. That's not what she says. It's he hardly wears a ball cap, i.e. he does sometimes. Police guy says, if it's real cold out, he doesn't wear the face thing. No, he would just freeze, says Kathy. Okay. Yeah, he's not going to wear anything on his face, not unless you're riding a motorcycle, which we don't ride those anymore. We did that 25 years ago. Now, as the hoodie was in the past, he didn't wear a hoodie. The wearing anything on his face is in the present tense. He's not going to wear anything on his face. Not he doesn't wear anything on his face. He's not going to. Actually, it's more future tense. In the future, he's not going to wear anything in his face. So while I think the hoodie might be referring back to that day, he's not going to, seems to be more in the future. So he could have worn a hoodie and a face covering on that day, given the tenses that could possibly be there. So looking at the tenses and what's said there, he could have been wearing a hat and a face covering that day. And let's talk about that day some more. Back in 2027, that February 13th day, did he ever text you on the day of that day while you were at work? Oh my gosh, I don't remember, she says. Is that normal? He texts me every day, says Kathy. He does? Oh yeah. Even when you're at work, even when I'm at work. She's just really answering the questions and engaging here. Do you remember that day, says the police guy? I know it was a long time ago, but do you remember that day, like him not texting you? She says, no. He texts me every day if I'm not with him. So she says no, straight away, a yes, no question. And once more, she says, no. And she says, yeah, I'm sure he texted me, but I couldn't tell you for sure. I mean, we text each other when we're not together. So what she's saying here is it's very usual that he texted me that day. I don't remember him not texting me that day. It's not something that jumps out of my mind. She is taking the question on and she's answering it to the very best of her ability, I believe. Right. So I would have been at work. He texts, I love you a lot. Which is interesting because we get the sense from some of the other stuff that he might be maybe a little bit controlling of what she does and how she behaves or what she's allowed to do, if you like. But here, it doesn't pay attention to each other as well when they're on the sofa. They just kind of do their own things. But he texts every day to say, I love you. So you said he was sleeping when you got home that day, asked the police guy. If I recall correctly, yeah, says Kathy. Was that normal for him? She says, well, yeah. He sleeps a lot. We've got the well at the beginning of her answer again, and we get a little bit of an explanation. Yeah, he sleeps a lot. Okay, says the police guy. And then she says, I just remember him sleeping. And then I saw the news come on and I said those girls fell off that bridge. Now, the COVID fog really seems to have disappeared. She seems to have razor sharp memories, when it suits her, on what happened that day. I just remember him sleeping. And then I saw the news come on, and then suggests a jump in time. Because if I'm telling you a story, I got up this morning and then I left the house and forgot my laptop and left it in the office, right? There's lots of other things happened between me getting up and leaving the house, but I jump all of that with a verbal bridge and then, because in that story, it wasn't worth telling you about it. And that might be the case here as well, but she is jumping over something with, I remember him sleeping and then I saw the news come on. I would be asking, what happened between you coming home and him sleeping and you seeing this on the news? That's what I would be asking her. And I said, those girls fell off the bridge. You said that or he said that, said the police guy. I did, says Kathy. Okay, because I knew they had to have. When did you find out what actually happened, said the police guy. Oh gosh, when it came out in the news, I'm like, and then there's something inaudible. That was a horrible day here, is what she says. And you'll notice here she's taking on the emotions. Her memory is coming back. That was a horrible day here when we found out what happened to those girls. Was that your thoughts or, now this is a question about Richard, and she doesn't answer. She says, I felt awful for them. I believe that, but she just talks for herself here. I felt awful for them because I have a daughter. Did you talk to him about it, asked the police guy. Oh, he knew how I felt. We both felt that way. Now, she doesn't answer the question. Did you talk to him about it? Yes, I did. No, I didn't. She doesn't take that part on. She says, oh, he knew how I felt. We both felt that way. And again, we have this thing of it's only normal if they both did the same thing at the same time. He knew how I felt. We both felt that way. She does that pronoun step again. He knew how I felt. We both felt that way. Did he say anything about it? She says. Now, that's not a yes or no. That's a little bit of a, I'm going to sit back and go, No, says the police guy. Other than he was out there. I mean, he was straight up with me about that. Then he told me what he encountered. Now, let's break the first part of that down. So he didn't say anything other than he was out there. I mean, he was straight up with me about that. Again, is that denoting that there are other things that he wasn't straight up about? He was straight up with me about that. So again, I get the impression that she thinks Richard might not be telling her everything. Then he told me what he encountered. Like, you didn't see these two girls anywhere? He says, no, just that group of three. I thought for sure they tried to cross the damn bridge, and I knew that was not possible. I don't know how anybody could walk on that bridge. Now she's veered away a little bit here from, did you two of you talk about that? And she says, other than that he was out there, he was straight up with me like that. And then she takes this bridge, excuse no pun intended, and talks about the fact that of what she thought had happened to those girls at the time she first found out they were missing. She thought that they had fallen off the bridge. So she's not answering that question directly. Why is that? Is that the fact that maybe they didn't talk about it, but she wants to make up some reassuring things to tell the police? Or is it the fact that there was other conversations that were had that she doesn't want to share with the police? So in that little section there, I really do think she is open to the thought that Richard Allen might not have told her everything about that day. Right, let's talk about the picture then. I'm sure the picture is put down in front of her in this interview. Have you seen that picture? She says, oh God, 1,000,000 times, and there's a kind of chuckle. Okay, is that your husband? No, she says, straightforward, direct, no. Could it be your husband? No, she says. And he says, why not? And she says, because he would never do anything like that. Now, that is a really interesting way of answering the question. It's not, it could be him, like picture-wise, it could be him, or it does look like him, or I can't tell who it is, or anything like that. She's using the whole concept of this is a picture of the person that killed the girls, and saying that it can't be Richard because he wouldn't kill the girls. But her wording on that is quite strange, because he would never do anything like that. It's not he didn't do it. It's he would never, and we've got that word never again, do anything like that. That's a little bit more distance. It's not he would never do that. He would never kill those girls. It's just he would never do anything like that, which is not the same thing as he would never do that. It's very, very different, in fact. The police guy realises where she's at in her mind, and he says, well, we're not talking about whether he would do it or not. We're just, she interrupts and says no, which is saying she really wants to shut this down. That picture, would that be your husband? She says, that could be any male. That's interesting, because that is a yes-no question. And for the first time, she hasn't done a yes-no answer. Would that be your husband? No. She says that could be any male. Now, I've seen the picture. It can't be any male. It can be lots of males. I get that. It's not the clearest picture in the world ever, but it can't be any male. And if it could be any male, then it could be her husband. Okay, anywhere, anytime. Well, it couldn't be any male anywhere, anytime. It's a very specific location, and it was taken at a specific time. So she is wanting to create some... Look, I'm not going to talk about this picture because it's very generic, but it's not very generic. So when she's pressed, is that your husband there? She gets a little bit defensive there. I mean, those clothes or whatever, could that be your husband? Size-wise, I mean. And she says, well, size-wise, yeah. So she's starting to come round to all of this. But then I also have to say, like, is the police guy, is he being like a sales guy and just trying to get some yeses going? So when he comes to ask the question again, could that be your husband? She goes, well, on those grounds, yeah. In which case, does that give the police more authority or something to work with? Like going to Richard and saying, your husband says, your wife says this could be you, and he loses it there. Size-wise, yeah, she says, okay. She says, I mean, sure. But what does he have on his head? That's what I've always been trying to figure out. That's interesting. He is a little bit close. When we talk about he, it's someone close. It's not that guy. Or what does the guy in the picture have on his head? It's he. What does he have on his head? That's a closer term than anything else that could have been used. That's what I've always been trying to figure out. The guy says, okay, but facial, what you can see with the face and stuff, that nose looks huge. There's no way, she says. Now, she said it could be any male. Now she's saying there's no way it could be Richard. Not quite hanging together here. It's all getting a little bit like she's wanting to be very strident and saying, no, it's not him. Certainly not wanting to give the police anything to work with here. Okay, no, so that couldn't be your husband. No, she says. Yes, no question. And she says no. No, because what's the brown? And the police guy says that could be an anomaly with the picture. I have no idea, she says, because we've got brown and purple back there. Sure, so that just could be an anomaly with the picture. Sure, says Kathy. It could be, it could be a lot of things, but, says the police guy. Says Kathy. Now she's not going to give any more. But not, just taking the fact away from what actually happened out there. Says Kathy. If you saw that picture, could that be your husband? And she says, I'm sure there's a lot of people that could say it could be somebody. She doesn't answer the question. I think the truth is here that she's looking at that picture and thinks it could be my husband. But what potentially is going on there? Well, it could be she's thinking, I'm not going to get him in any more trouble than he's in already, but it does look like it could be him. Or it could be she's thinking, I'm not falling for the trap that is being set here in this interview. I am not going to say, yeah, I agree, it could be him, but I don't think it is him. I'm not going to give him anything to work with, which is why she doesn't answer that question. I'm sure there's a lot of people that say it could be somebody. And then she says, that's not very fair to say. He's short, he's fat, and she chuckles. The police guy says, yeah, I've never seen him. So, yeah, that wouldn't be a very fair thing to say, says Kathy, though, because that's when you get all kinds of people accusing you. So that wouldn't be a very fair thing to say. Look, I think, for better or worse, she thinks that could be a picture of her husband. Just could be a picture of her husband. So there we go. With that section there, what have I got? Well, listen, she is avoiding that question. She doesn't want to be trapped, or she isn't sure if that is her husband in the picture or not. I don't know. It could be both of those things. So that has been some of the most fascinating words, questions, answers that I have seen all year. Really, really interesting to dig into. So having looked at all of that, and I've looked at the full interview as well, what are my conclusions? I think she's being mostly truthful in that interview. Helpful, but guarded sometimes, but mostly truthful and taking on the questions and trying to be helpful there. Look, she doesn't show to me any signs in her words that she knows Richard was involved in the killing. Like she's hiding all that stuff and, she's like the wife standing behind a very, very bad person. Don't see any signs of that at all. I also don't see any signs that she suspects he was involved in any grand way. I don't think she's like hiding any doubts she has or anything like that. But through distancing and avoiding, I think she's showing signs that she thinks he may be involved in that. She's not 100% sure whether he did or did not kill those girls. That's what I think. What do you think? Do let me know in the comments if you want, or you can get in touch on social media as well. NeverAtruerWord.com is a website where you'll find all the social media links. Also, if this is a case that interests you, then there's a whole playlist looking at the words of the Delphi suspects and other people involved in the Delphi story. You'll find that all at NeverAtruerWord.com. And if you want more than Delphi, you'll find all that there as well. NeverAtruerWord.com. We'll see you soon for something new from Never a Truer Word.